My name is Morgan Reynolds, 32 years old. And last Sunday, I discovered my entire family had been plotting against me for months. One careless moment when my brother Jason left his phone unlocked revealed a family group chat I never knew existed. My stomach dropped as I read their messages about cutting me out of my grandmother's will. The people I trusted most in the world, my parents, siblings, even my aunt, were conspiring to steal my inheritance while smiling to my face. I never imagined betrayal could feel this physically painful. Before I dive into this nightmare, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever discovered someone wasn't who you thought they were. Trust me, this family drama gets wild and you'll want to stick around to see how I fought back. Growing up, I always felt a special connection with my grandmother Evelyn. At 86, she remained sharp as a tack with the kind of wisdom that only comes from decades of experience. Grandma Evelyn had built an impressive real estate portfolio after Grandpa died, turning his small business into a mini empire of commercial properties across Chicago. While not exactly billionaire status, her assets were substantial enough that inheritance had unfortunately become a topic of hushed conversations. My relationship with Grandma was different from my siblings. Jason, 35, had always been the charming but irresponsible one, jumping between get-rich-quick schemes and borrowing money that was never repaid. Rachel, 29, lived an Instagram-perfect life with her husband in the suburbs, though I suspected their lifestyle exceeded their means. My parents, Richard and Caroline, were comfortably retired but constantly worried about their financial future. Then there was Aunt Barbara, my mother's sister, who had moved in with Grandma Evelyn to help care for her 2 years ago. Meanwhile, I had taken the stable route, college MBA, then climbing the corporate ladder at a marketing firm downtown. I visited Grandma weekly, helped with her finances, and drove her to medical appointments. This wasn't a burden. I genuinely enjoyed her company and sharp wit. She often said I reminded her of herself at my age. That Sunday dinner at my parents' suburban home had started like any other. Mom prepared her famous pot roast. Dad poured the wine too generously. Jason arrived late with excuses, and Rachel documented everything for social media. After dinner, while everyone was having coffee in the living room, I realized I needed to check an urgent work email. "Can I borrow your phone for a minute? My battery died," I asked Jason. He hesitated before handing it over. "Sure, just give it right back when you're done." As I finished typing, my response to my boss notification banners started appearing at the top of the screen. They were from a group chat named Family Matters No Morgan. The preview messages made my blood run cold. "Barbara meeting with the new attorney went great. As long as we keep Morgan in the dark until the papers are signed. Dad, let's not discuss this now. Everyone stick to the plan. Rachel, Morgan suspects nothing. We're good." My fingers trembled as I clicked on the notification. Thousands of messages loaded dating back 6 months. I quickly scrolled, catching snippets about the will situation. "Morgan doesn't need the money like we do, and Evelyn doesn't need to know." I somehow managed to hand the phone back to Jason, with a steady hand excusing myself to the bathroom, where I locked the door and tried to process what I'd seen. My family, the people I'd shared every holiday, every milestone with, were actively plotting to cut me out of my grandmother's will, and they had a dedicated group chat specifically to exclude me from the conversation. The remainder of that dinner was an out-of-body experience. I smiled through dessert, laughed at Dad's corny jokes, and hugged everyone goodbye as if nothing had happened. No one seemed to notice that my world had just imploded. Not even Jason showed any guilt or concern that I might have seen the messages. On the drive back to my downtown apartment, I cycled through every emotion: shock, hurt, rage, disbelief. By the time I unlocked my door, one feeling solidified above all others: determination. I wasn't going to confront them, not yet. First, I needed to understand exactly what they were planning and gather evidence. If my family wanted to play dirty, they were about to learn I wasn't the pushover they apparently thought I was. The next morning, I called into work and took an emergency week of vacation. My boss was surprised. I rarely took time off, but approved it without question. I needed every waking hour to figure out what my family was planning and how to stop it. My first move was to visit Grandma Evelyn. I texted her directly, bypassing Aunt Barbara, who usually screened her communications, asking if I could come help with her spring gardening. Grandma loved her roses and had been complaining that Barbara had no interest in maintaining them. "Morgan, what a wonderful surprise!" Grandma exclaimed when I arrived at her sprawling Victorian home in the historic district. Despite her age, she moved with purpose, only occasionally using her cane. "Barbara just left for her weekly bridge game. She won't be back until dinner." Perfect. I needed time alone with Grandma. As we worked in the garden, I carefully steered our conversation toward family matters, keeping my tone casual. "I noticed you seem tired lately, Grandma. Is everything okay with your health?" She sighed, patting soil around a newly planted rosebush. "Oh, I'm fine, dear. Just not sleeping well. All this business with attorneys and paperwork is exhausting." My heart skipped a beat. "Attorneys? What's going on?" "Frank Sullivan has been my attorney for 30 years, but Barbara insisted I needed someone more modern. This new fellow, Philip Harrison, keeps scheduling meetings and bringing documents." She frowned. "Frank was upset when I told him. First time I've seen that man lose his composure." I made a mental note. Frank Sullivan might be an ally. "Why the change? Is something wrong with your will or estate planning?" I kept my tone light, just a concerned granddaughter. "Barbara says it needs updating." "She's probably right. She handles so many things for me now. I just sign where they tell me." Grandma looked up at me with clear eyes. "But enough about boring legal matters. Tell me about that promotion you were hoping for." As we continued gardening, I noticed something troubling. Whenever I mentioned family finances or her will directly, Grandma would change the subject. This wasn't like her. She'd always been forthright about money matters. It seemed someone had coached her to avoid these topics with me. Later, while Grandma rested inside, I explored the house under the pretense of cleaning. In Barbara's guest room, now a permanent residence, I found prescription bottles for medications I didn't recognize, none prescribed to Grandma Evelyn. A quick internet search revealed they were anti-anxiety medications and sleeping pills. Was Barbara medicating my grandmother? Just then I heard the front door open and Barbara's voice calling out. I quickly replaced the bottles and slipped out of the room. "Morgan, what a surprise," Barbara said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Evelyn didn't mention you were coming today. Spontaneous visit. We were working in the garden." Barbara's phone rang and she stepped onto the porch to take the call. I followed quietly, staying just inside where I could hear her conversation. "Yes, everything's proceeding as planned," she said in a low voice. "The final papers should be ready next week." "No, Morgan doesn't suspect anything." "Of course, Richard's on board. It was his idea." "Yes, the sleeping pills are working perfectly." My blood boiled, but I maintained my composure. When Barbara returned, I made excuses about a work emergency and left, but not before noticing a folder in Barbara's purse labeled Casino Payment Plan. As she hugged me goodbye, I managed to snap a quick photo of the visible corner of what appeared to be a payment schedule for over $200,000. That night I researched my family's financial situations. Using public records and social media, I discovered Jason had a tax lien against his condo, and Rachel's husband had recently been laid off. Their picture-perfect suburban house had a second mortgage taken out just 3 months ago. Most concerning, my parents' retirement accounts showed massive withdrawals over the past year. The picture was becoming clearer. My family was in financial trouble and they saw Grandma's money as the solution. But why cut me out completely? The next day I confronted Jason at his workplace, catching him off guard during his lunch break. "We need to talk about the group chat," I said bluntly after sitting down across from him. His face paled. "What group chat?" "Don't play dumb, Jason. Family matters, no Morgan. I saw it on your phone." He stuttered through denials before finally sighing. "Look, it's not what you think. So you're not all plotting to cut me out of Grandma's will?" "It's complicated, Morgan. You've got your fancy job and your perfect life. The rest of us are drowning. You don't need the inheritance like we do." That should be Grandma's decision, not yours, I responded, my voice rising. How could you do this? Jason looked genuinely conflicted. It wasn't my idea, I swear. But I can't tell you more, they'd kill me. Who dead, Barbara? He abruptly stood up. I've said too much already. Stay out of it, Morgan. For your own good. His warning only strengthened my resolve. The next stop on my investigation, Frank Sullivan, Grandma's longtime attorney. Frank Sullivan's law office was located in a historic building downtown, the kind with real wood paneling and brass nameplates. His secretary recognized my name immediately and ushered me in without an appointment. Morgan Reynolds, Frank said, rising from behind his desk to shake my hand. He was in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I was hoping you'd contact me. Please sit down. You know why I'm here? I asked, surprised. I suspected someone from the family might come eventually. I'm glad it's you. He leaned back in his chair. I assume this is about your grandmother's estate. I nodded, and Frank sighed deeply. I've been Evelyn's attorney for 3 decades. I handled your grandfather's estate and every legal matter since. Then, 2 months ago, I received a call saying my services were no longer required. His expression darkened. Supposedly it was Evelyn's decision. But when I called to confirm your aunt, Barbara intercepted the call and wouldn't let me speak to Evelyn directly. Who's the new attorney? I asked, though I already knew. Philip Harrison. Young hotshot from downtown, specializes in creative estate planning, which often means finding loopholes to avoid taxes or creditors. Frank opened a drawer and pulled out a file. I shouldn't show you this, but given the circumstances, I think it's necessary. He slid a document across the desk, a copy of Grandma's previous will. The last official will I drafted divided Evelyn's estate equally between her 3 grandchildren, you, Jason, and Rachel, with you named as executor due to your financial background. Your parents and Barbara received smaller specified amounts. He removed his glasses. I refused to make the changes they wanted, which is why I was replaced. What changes? My mouth felt dry. They wanted everything placed in a trust, controlled by Barbara with her as the sole executor. The trust would then distribute funds at her discretion to family members in good standing. There was specific language that would effectively disinherit any family member who caused discord or legal challenges. Frank's expression was grave. It was clearly designed to cut you out while preventing you from contesting it. But why would Grandma agree to this? I couldn't reconcile this with the woman I knew. That's what troubled me. When I questioned whether Evelyn fully understood the implications, Barbara became hostile. The next day I received termination papers with Evelyn's signature. He hesitated. Morgan, I have serious concerns about whether that signature is authentic. You think they forged it? I can't prove it, but I've seen Evelyn's signature for 30 years. Something wasn't right. What about power of attorney? Who controls Grandma's affairs if she becomes incapacitated? Frank's expression darkened further. Barbara obtained medical power of attorney 6 months ago. I drafted that document and Evelyn did sign it. She thought it was sensible since Barbara lives with her, but I advised against giving Barbara financial power of attorney. Apparently Harrison had no such qualms. I felt sick. My grandmother was being manipulated and possibly defrauded by my own family. What can I do? I asked. Legally it's complicated without proof of coercion or forgery. But start by talking to your parents. They may not understand the full implications of what Barbara is orchestrating. That evening, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. Mom answered the door, surprised to see me. Morgan, is everything okay? No, Mom, everything is not okay. We need to talk about Grandma's will. Her expression shifted from concern to wariness. Richard, she called over her shoulder, Morgan's here. In the living room, I confronted them directly. I know about the group chat and the plan to cut me out of Grandma's will. My father's face hardened. Who told you? Does it matter? How could you do this? Mom at least had the decency to look ashamed. Morgan, you have to understand. Understand what that my own parents are conspiring against me. Dad leaned forward. "You're successful, Morgan. You have a great job, no debt, a bright future. Your siblings are struggling. Your mother and I have financial concerns you know nothing about, so that justifies stealing my inheritance. An inheritance Grandma wants me to have." "Evelyn doesn't understand modern financial realities," Dad said dismissively. "The money would benefit the entire family this way." "Except me," I shot back. "You don't need it like we do," Mom exclaimed. "Jason could lose his home. Rachel's husband hasn't found work in months. And she trailed off, looking at Dad. "We made some investment mistakes," Dad admitted reluctantly. "The retirement fund isn't what it should be." I stared at them, these strangers wearing my parents' faces. "So instead of asking for help, instead of being honest with me and Grandma, you decided to manipulate her and cut me out entirely." "It's for the family's good," Dad insisted. "Sometimes difficult decisions have to be made." "Does Grandma even know what she's signing? Is Barbara medicating her?" Their uncomfortable glance at each other confirmed my suspicions. "Just some mild sedatives," Mom said quietly. "Evelyn has anxiety. The doctor prescribed them." "Which doctor?" "Her regular physician of 20 years or some new one Barbara found." Their silence was damning. I stood up, shaking with anger and grief. "You're not just betraying me. You're betraying Grandma, your own mother, Dad. How do you sleep at night?" "Morgan, please." Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I trusted you. My whole life I believed you were good people." My voice broke. "I was wrong." I walked out, ignoring their calls to come back and talk. In my car, the tears finally came. I'd lost my family in a single week. The betrayal cut so deep, I wondered if I could ever recover. For the first time since discovering the plot, I considered giving up. Maybe fighting would only make things worse. Maybe I should just let them win. But then I thought of Grandma Evelyn being manipulated and possibly drugged in her own home. This wasn't just about my inheritance anymore, it was about protecting her. And I wouldn't abandon her even if it meant fighting my entire family to do it. The morning after confronting my parents, I woke up feeling hollowed out but determined. I called my best friend Audrey, who worked as a paralegal at a prestigious law firm downtown. "I need your help," I told her, my voice still rough from crying. "It's about my family and Grandma's will." We met for coffee, and I laid out everything I'd discovered. Audrey listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each revelation. "Morgan, this isn't just family drama," she said when I finished. "What you're describing could constitute elder abuse and fraud. I can help you access public records that might strengthen your case." Over the next 3 days, Audrey and I dug into my family's finances. What we uncovered was worse than I imagined. Aunt Barbara had filed for bankruptcy twice, with her most recent financial troubles stemming from gambling debts at various casinos across the Midwest. Public records showed she owed over $300,000 to creditors. "Look at this," Audrey said, pointing to her laptop screen. "Barbara's name is on these property liens, but there's also a small withdrawal pattern from an account labeled ER Trust." "That's Evelyn Reynolds' trust," I said, leaning closer. "That's Grandma's account. Barbara's been taking money already. Small amounts. Probably testing the waters. 5,000 here, 8,000 there. Not enough to raise immediate alarms, but it adds up to nearly $80,000 over the past year." I felt sick. We need more evidence of what's happening inside that house. That's when I decided to reach out to Diane Peterson, Grandma Evelyn's part-time caregiver who came 3 times weekly to help with household tasks and personal care. I'd always liked Diane. She was competent and genuinely seemed to care about Grandma. I invited her to meet me at a cafe far from my grandmother's neighborhood. "I've been concerned for months," Diane confided after I explained my suspicions. "Your grandmother isn't the same person. She's foggy, especially after taking her anxiety medication. Some days she doesn't remember our conversations from hours earlier." "Do you know what medications she's on?" Diane nodded. "I've documented everything. Barbara doesn't know, but I've been keeping a log." She pulled out a small notebook. "I'm a certified nursing assistant. I know when something's not right. Diane became my first true ally in this fight. She showed me her detailed notes on Grandma's medication schedule, behavior changes, and concerning incidents like Barbara restricting visitors and monitoring phone calls. Last month, your grandmother wanted to call you about some old family photos she found, but Barbara intercepted and said you were too busy with work to be bothered. Evelyn was so disappointed. My heart broke hearing this. Barbara's isolating her. And there's something else, Diane said, lowering her voice. I've seen Barbara going through Evelyn's private papers. Once I caught her practicing your grandmother's signature. This was the evidence I needed. Diane, would you be willing to document all this officially? It might mean testifying if this goes to court. She nodded without hesitation. I care about Evelyn. What they're doing isn't right. Diane also confirmed my suspicions about the family group chat. While helping Jason set up Grandma's new TV, she had glimpsed messages on his phone discussing my grandmother's finances and references to keeping me in the dark. I can forward you screenshots, she offered. I took some when I realized something suspicious was happening. I thought I might need them someday. The screenshots Diane sent revealed the true extent of the conspiracy. My family wasn't just planning to cut me out of the will, they were systematically isolating Grandma from outside influence, while Barbara drained her accounts. One message from my father read, "Once the new will is signed, Morgan won't have legal standing to challenge anything. Barbara will control disbursements, and we can make sure Morgan only gets a token amount enough to make challenging the will not worth her time." Another from Rachel, "What if Morgan figures it out? She's always been the smart one." Barbara's response chilled me. By then, it will be too late. If she causes problems, she gets nothing. The new wording is very specific. Armed with this evidence, I returned to Audrey's apartment, where we spent the night organizing everything we'd gathered. Around 2 a.m., exhausted and overwhelmed, I broke down. "These are the people who raised me," I sobbed into Audrey's shoulder. "How could they do this?" Audrey held me while I cried. "Money changes people, Morgan. It reveals who they truly are. What if I can't stop them? What if I lose Grandma in this fight?" "You're not alone," Audrey assured me. "You have me, you have Diane, and we're going to find more allies. We're going to fight this." By morning we had a comprehensive file of evidence and a plan. I would need legal help beyond what Audrey could provide, but first I needed to try one more approach, reaching out to my sister Rachel, who seemed the most conflicted about the plan based on the messages. What I didn't know then was that this attempt at reconciliation would lead to my second major betrayal and push me to the brink of giving up entirely. I arranged to meet Rachel at a quiet cafe near her suburban home, choosing a public place to avoid a scene. When she arrived, I could immediately tell she was nervous. Her usual perfectly styled appearance was slightly disheveled and she couldn't meet my eyes. "Thanks for coming," I said as she sat down. "I think we need to talk. If this is about Grandma's will, Morgan, I know everything, Rachel. The group chat, Barbara's gambling debts, the plan to cut me out. I've seen the evidence." She paled. "How? Does it matter? What matters is that what you're all doing is wrong, possibly illegal, and definitely hurting Grandma." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand. Barbara has something on me." This was unexpected. "What do you mean?" 3 years ago, when Tyler lost his job, we were desperate. I borrowed money from the charity foundation where I volunteered as treasurer. She looked down. "I always meant to pay it back, but things got worse. Barbara found out somehow. She's blackmailing you." I was shocked. "Rachel, that's..." She said if I didn't help with this will situation, she'd expose everything. I'd lose my reputation, possibly go to jail. She wiped her eyes. "I've been providing statements about how you abandoned the family, how you're too busy for Grandma. My own sister had been lying about me to cut me out of my inheritance." The betrayal stung, but I could see she was genuinely distressed. "Rachel, what you did was wrong, but so is this. Grandma's being manipulated and possibly drugged. If you come clean now, help me stop this. I'll help you sort out the charity situation legally." Hope flickered in her eyes. "You would do that even after what I've done?" You're my sister. We can fix this together. I reached for her hand. But we need to act quickly. Will you help me? All you need to do is tell Grandma the truth about what Barbara's been doing. After a long pause, Rachel nodded. Okay, let's go see Grandma tomorrow. I'll tell her everything. I felt a weight lift. Having Rachel on my side would be a huge advantage. Barbara wouldn't see it coming. We made plans to meet at Grandma's house the following afternoon, when Barbara usually went to her therapy appointment. I should have known it was too easy. The next day I arrived at Grandma's house at the agreed time, bringing the evidence file Audrey and I had compiled. I knocked, expecting Rachel to answer. Instead, the door swung open to reveal not just Rachel but my entire family. Barbara, my parents, Jason, and a frail-looking Grandma Evelyn seated in her armchair. "Hello, Morgan," Barbara said coldly. "Rachel told us about your little plan." My sister couldn't meet my eyes. She had warned them immediately after our meeting. "Grandma," I said, ignoring the others and moving toward her, "I need to talk to you." Dad stepped between us. "That's not happening. You've caused enough trouble." "Trouble? They're manipulating you. Grandma Barbara has been stealing from your accounts. They're medicating you without proper prescriptions." "Ridiculous accusations," Barbara cut in. "Evelyn, this is exactly what we warned you about. Morgan is after your money and will say anything to get it." "That's not true." I turned desperately to Grandma. "They have a group chat specifically to exclude me. They've been planning this for months." Grandma looked confused, her gaze drifting between family members. "I don't understand. Morgan, why are you saying these terrible things?" My mother put her hand on Grandma's shoulder. "She's jealous, Evelyn. She can't stand the idea that you trust Barbara more than her." "Show her the evidence," I demanded, holding up my file. "Let her see for herself." "There will be none of that," Barbara snapped, then turned to Grandma with a completely transformed, gentle voice. "Evelyn, this is very upsetting for you. Perhaps you should take your medication and rest." "Don't take anything they give you, Grandma," I pleaded. "They're not the right prescriptions." Jason stepped forward. "I think you should leave Morgan, not without talking to Grandma alone." "That's not happening," Barbara said firmly. "Evelyn has made her wishes clear. She doesn't want to see you if you're going to make these wild accusations." I looked desperately at Grandma. "Is that true? Do you want me to leave?" Grandma's eyes were glassy, unfocused. "I think perhaps it's best if things calm down. Maybe come back another day, dear." Barbara smirked triumphantly. "You heard her. Leave now or we'll call the police for trespassing." "This isn't over," I said, backing toward the door. "Grandma, I'm going to help you, I promise." As I left, I heard Rachel call out, "Morgan, wait," but Barbara silenced her with a harsh whisper. Outside, I found Diane waiting anxiously by her car. She had arrived for her shift and witnessed everything through the window. "They ambushed you," she said, hugging me. "I'm so sorry." "They fired you, didn't they?" She nodded. "Barbara called this morning, said my services were no longer needed." My last direct connection to Grandma gone. Without Diane in the house, I had no way to monitor Grandma's condition or medication. "What now?" Diane asked. I stared at the house, feeling more defeated than I'd ever been. "I don't know. They have her completely isolated. They've turned her against me with lies. Maybe I should just give up and leave Evelyn at their mercy." The Morgan Reynolds I know wouldn't do that. She was right. No matter how hopeless it seemed, I couldn't abandon my grandmother. "No, I won't give up," I said with renewed determination. "If they want to play hardball, they have no idea what's coming. This isn't just about the inheritance anymore, it's about saving Grandma." As we drove away, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Morgan, it's Rachel. I'm sorry. They made me call them. Barbara threatened to expose everything immediately. I can't help you openly, but I'll try to get information to you. Be careful, they're planning something against you." Too little too late. My sister had betrayed me twice now. I couldn't trust anything she said. The family had escalated this to all-out war, and I had just lost a major battle. But the war was far from over. It was time to bring in the heavy artillery, legal artillery. The morning after the ambush at Grandma's house, I contacted attorney Christine Patel, who specialized in elder law and had a reputation for fiercely protecting vulnerable seniors. Her office was sleek and modern, reflecting her no-nonsense approach. "Based on what you've told me and the evidence you've provided," Christine said, after reviewing my file, "we have grounds for serious legal action. This appears to be a textbook case of elder exploitation." Her confidence was exactly what I needed. "What can we do?" "Multiple approaches. First, we'll file for an emergency guardianship hearing to review your grandmother's competency and the validity of Barbara's power of attorney. Second, we'll report the financial irregularities to Adult Protective Services. Third, we'll challenge any new will as being executed under undue influence. Will that be enough to stop them? It's a start." Christine's dark eyes were determined. "The courts take elder abuse seriously. But be prepared, this will get ugly. Your family will fight back hard." "I'm ready," I assured her, though my stomach knotted at the thought of a public legal battle with my own family. Christine wasn't exaggerating about things getting ugly. Within days of our filing the emergency petition, Barbara made her countermove. Police officers appeared at my apartment door one evening with questions about items missing from Evelyn Reynolds' home. "What items?" I asked, bewildered. "Jewelry valued at approximately $50,000, the officer replied. "Miss Barbara Reynolds states you were the last visitor before the items were discovered missing." I was being framed for theft. Fortunately, I had been with Audrey during the time Barbara claimed the theft occurred, giving me a solid alibi. Still, I had to go to the police station to make a statement, and the incident made the local news. "Granddaughter questioned in theft from elderly woman." My workplace wasn't immune to the scandal. The marketing firm where I'd worked for 8 years prided itself on its reputation. My boss called me into his office the next day. "Morgan, these allegations. The board is concerned about the publicity. They're false accusations, Jim. My aunt is trying to discredit me because I'm challenging her control over my grandmother." He looked uncomfortable. "Even so, perhaps you should take a leave of absence until this is resolved." Just like that, I was effectively suspended. No income, a legal battle brewing, and my reputation under attack. Barbara's strategy was becoming clear: isolate me, discredit me, and drain my resources until I gave up. Christine was furious when I told her about the theft accusation. "This is witness intimidation, plain and simple. We'll add it to our complaints." She immediately filed for an expedited hearing and sought a temporary restraining order to prevent Barbara from making further financial decisions for my grandmother. Meanwhile, Diane continued to be an invaluable ally. Though fired from her official position, she maintained contact with other household staff and neighborhood friends of my grandmother. Through this network, we learned that Grandma was rarely allowed visitors anymore, and when she was, Barbara or my parents were always present. "The gardener says she's rarely outside anymore," Diane reported. "And Mrs. Hendricks next door tried to visit twice last week but was turned away. They claimed Evelyn was too tired for company." My grandmother, vibrant social Evelyn Reynolds, was being held prisoner in her own home. Then came the most shocking revelation. While reviewing Grandma's medical records that Christine had subpoenaed, we discovered that her longtime physician, Dr. Thomas Wilson, had been replaced 6 months ago with a new doctor who had prescribed the sedatives and anti-anxiety medications. On a hunch, I asked Christine to look into the new doctor's background. What she found was disturbing. Dr. Gregory Simmons has been reprimanded twice by the medical board for overprescribing sedatives to elderly patients, Christine reported. And guess who one of his regular clients is? The Golden Palace Casino, Barbara's favorite gambling spot. Are you saying he's prescribing medications as a favor to the casino? It's not unheard of. High rollers get perks. Sometimes those perks extend to professional services. We immediately reported this to the medical board and added it to our growing case file. But our legal proceedings were moving slowly, while Grandma remained under Barbara's control. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Thomas Wilson, Grandma's former physician, contacted Christine's office after receiving the subpoena for records. "I've been worried about Evelyn for months," he told us when we met. "I was abruptly dismissed after expressing concerns about changes in her mental acuity. I suspected medication issues, but Barbara refused to discuss it. Would you be willing to testify about this?" Christine asked. "Absolutely. What's happening to Evelyn isn't right. And there's something else you should know." He hesitated. "Before I was dismissed, Richard, Evelyn's son, asked me about medications that would make someone more compliant without affecting their legal capacity to sign documents. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My father wasn't just going along with Barbara's plan, he might be the architect of it." "I refused, of course," Dr. Wilson continued. "I think that's why I was replaced." With Dr. Wilson's testimony and our accumulated evidence, Christine secured an emergency hearing date. The judge also ordered a freeze on major financial transactions from my grandmother's accounts pending the hearing outcome. It was progress, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. As Christine had warned, my family would fight back with everything they had. And they still had one advantage: I couldn't overcome direct access to Grandma. The night before the hearing, I received an alarming call from the building manager of my apartment complex. "Miss Reynolds, there's been a break-in at your unit. The police are here now." I rushed home to find my apartment ransacked. The police officer on scene was sympathetic. "Looks like they were searching for something specific. Your electronics and valuables are untouched, but your home office is destroyed." I knew immediately what they had been looking for: my evidence file. Fortunately, I kept all original documents with Christine and backups in a secure cloud account. What the intruders didn't know was that I had installed a security camera after the theft accusation, fearing exactly this kind of retaliation. The footage clearly showed Barbara entering my apartment with a key I hadn't provided. "We've got her," Christine said triumphantly when I sent her the footage. "Breaking and entering attempted theft of legal documents. This adds criminal charges to our case." The stakes had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined when I first discovered that family group chat. What started as an inheritance dispute had become a criminal conspiracy involving fraud, elder abuse, and now breaking and entering. As I sat in my violated apartment that night, surrounded by the chaos Barbara had created, I realized the final confrontation was approaching. Tomorrow's hearing would change everything one way or another. The county courthouse was intimidating with its marble columns and imposing steps. I arrived early with Christine, mentally preparing for the confrontation ahead. We had arranged for Dr. Wilson to meet us there, along with Diane and the financial experts who would testify about the suspicious transactions from Grandma's accounts. "Remember," Christine counseled, "stay calm no matter what they say. The judge needs to see you as the reasonable party here." When my family arrived, the contrast was striking. Barbara looked polished and professional, playing the role of devoted caretaker. My parents appeared solemn and concerned. Jason and Rachel trailed behind, both avoiding my gaze. Behind them, supported by a nurse I didn't recognize, was Grandma Evelyn, looking frailer than I'd ever seen her. My heart ached at the sight of her. She seemed confused by the surroundings, her gaze darting nervously around the courthouse lobby. When she spotted me, there was a flicker of recognition, but Barbara quickly steered her away. Inside the courtroom, Judge Eleanor Martinez presided. She was known for her no-nonsense approach to elder law cases and had reviewed our petition thoroughly. "This hearing will determine whether temporary guardianship of Evelyn Reynolds should be transferred, pending a full competency evaluation," she began. "I'll hear from both sides, starting with the petitioner." Christine presented our case methodically, laying out the evidence of financial irregularities, medication changes, isolation tactics, and the recent break-in at my apartment. The security camera footage of Barbara entering my apartment illegally clearly disturbed the judge. Barbara's attorney, the same Philip Harrison who had replaced Frank Sullivan, argued that I was a disgruntled granddaughter upset about family decisions regarding inheritance. "Miss Reynolds has been estranged from the family due to her busy career," Harrison claimed. She's now manufacturing allegations because she's unhappy with her grandmother's decisions. Objection, Christine countered. Miss Reynolds visited her grandmother weekly until access was restricted by Miss Barbara Reynolds. We have witness testimony to support this. When Diane testified about the medication, irregularities and isolation, Barbara's attorney tried to discredit her as a disgruntled former employee. But Diane's detailed records and professional credentials as a certified nursing assistant stood firm under questioning. The financial experts presented evidence of Barbara's gambling debts and the suspicious withdrawals from Grandma's accounts, establishing a clear motive for her actions. Throughout the proceedings, I watched my grandmother. She appeared bewildered by the technical testimony, occasionally whispering questions to the nurse beside her. It broke my heart to see her dragged into this courtroom drama. Then came the moment that changed everything. Dr. Wilson took the stand. He spoke authoritatively about Grandma's previous health status and the abrupt dismissal after questioning her medication changes. But when asked who had requested information about compliance medications, his answer stunned the courtroom. It wasn't Barbara Reynolds who asked about those medications, Dr. Wilson clarified. It was Richard Reynolds, Evelyn's son, who made that inquiry. All eyes turned to my father, who visibly paled. Barbara shot him an accusatory glare. "And what exactly did Richard Reynolds ask you?" Christine prompted. "He wanted to know about medications that would make his mother more agreeable to suggestions, without impairing her legal capacity to sign documents. He specifically mentioned making changes to her will." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Martinez banged her gavel for order. "Your Honor," Christine said, "we would like to call Richard Reynolds to testify." My father looked trapped as he took the stand and was sworn in. Under Christine's skilled questioning, his carefully constructed facade began to crumble. "Did you inquire about medication to make your mother more compliant, Mr. Reynolds?" "I was concerned about her anxiety," he deflected. "Please answer the question directly." After a long pause, "Yes." "And why did you specify that her legal capacity to sign documents should remain intact?" He glanced at Barbara, then at my mother before answering. "There were estate matters that needed addressing." "Was cutting your daughter Morgan out of the will one of those matters?" "Objection," Harrison interjected. "Speculative." "I'll rephrase," Christine said smoothly. "Mr. Reynolds, did you create a family group chat, specifically excluding your daughter to discuss changes to your mother's will?" The direct question about the chat, something Harrison hadn't been prepared for, caught my father off guard. "How did you?" he began, then stopped himself. "Yes." Christine produced printouts of the chat messages Diane had captured. "And in these messages, did you not state, and I quote, 'Once the new will is signed, Morgan won't have legal standing to challenge anything'?" My father's face hardened. "You don't understand the financial pressures my family faces. Morgan has always been fine on her own. The rest of us needed help. So you decided to manipulate your elderly mother and cut out your daughter entirely. It wasn't like that he insisted, but his conviction was waning." "Then what was it like, Mr. Reynolds?" Christine pressed. "Please explain to the court why drugging your mother and isolating her from your daughter was necessary." That's when my father cracked. "It was never supposed to go this far. Yes, I wanted the will changed. Our retirement fund is gone. I made some bad investments, took out loans I couldn't repay. Barbara was supposed to just convince Mother to distribute things more evenly. But that's not what happened, was it? Barbara took over everything. She got that doctor to prescribe those medications. She convinced Mother that Morgan had abandoned her. Things escalated." The courtroom fell silent as my father basically confessed to initiating the conspiracy. Judge Martinez turned her attention to Barbara. "Miss Reynolds, would you care to respond to these allegations?" Barbara stood, composure cracking. "Richard came to me. He said he needed help fixing the will situation. He promised me enough money to clear my debts if I helped convince Evelyn to change things. Everything I did was following his instructions. My parents, aunt, brother, and sister, all of them implicated in this scheme, began arguing among themselves, pointing fingers and making accusations. Amidst the chaos, I noticed Grandma Evelyn looking increasingly distressed. I approached her, ignoring Barbara's protests. "Grandma, I'm so sorry about all this," I said, kneeling beside her chair. She gripped my hand. "Morgan, what's happening? Why is everyone fighting?" Before I could answer, Judge Martinez banged her gavel loudly. "Enough. This behavior is exactly why I'm concerned about Evelyn Reynolds' care." She turned to the court-appointed physician present. "Doctor, please take Miss Reynolds to a quiet room and assess her current condition. This court will recess for 30 minutes. As Grandma was gently led out, Judge Martinez fixed my family with a stern look. "When we reconvene, I expect a quorum from all parties." In the hallway during recess, my siblings approached me cautiously. "I tried to warn you," Rachel said quietly. "A little late for that," I replied. Jason looked genuinely remorseful. "I didn't know how bad it had gotten. Dad told us it was just about equalizing the inheritance. I never thought they'd drug Grandma or try to frame you for theft." I wasn't ready to forgive, but I recognized their positions had been complicated. "If you want to make things right, tell the truth when you're called to testify." When court reconvened, the court-appointed physician reported that Grandma appeared overmedicated and confused about basic details regarding her financial and legal affairs. He recommended immediate adjustment of her medication under supervision. Judge Martinez didn't hesitate. "Based on the evidence presented and the testimony heard today, I am granting temporary guardianship of Evelyn Reynolds to the court pending a full competency evaluation. Neither Barbara Reynolds nor Richard Reynolds will have access to Evelyn's finances or medical decisions during this period." She ordered Adult Protective Services to arrange for Evelyn's care, froze all of Evelyn's accounts, except for necessary living expenses, and scheduled a follow-up hearing in 2 weeks. Additionally, she continued, "I am referring evidence of financial exploitation and prescription misuse to the district attorney's office for review and possible criminal charges." As we left the courtroom, I felt both vindicated and heartbroken. I'd protected Grandma from further exploitation, but at the cost of exposing my family's darkest secrets and potentially sending my father and aunt to jail. Christine squeezed my shoulder. "You did the right thing, Morgan. Remember that." I watched as my grandmother was escorted to a waiting car that would take her to a skilled nursing facility for evaluation away from Barbara's influence. She looked back at me, once confused and fragile, before being helped into the vehicle. The war wasn't over, but the first major victory was mine. Now came the harder part, helping Grandma recover while figuring out if anything of my family relationships could be salvaged from the wreckage. The 2 weeks following the emergency hearing were a whirlwind of activity. Grandma Evelyn was settled into a reputable care facility, where her medications were properly adjusted under medical supervision. Christine secured permission for me to visit her regularly, while Barbara and my father were allowed only supervised visits. On my first visit, Grandma was still disoriented, the effects of the improper medication lingering in her system. By the third visit, however, I began to see glimpses of the sharp, engaged woman I'd always known. "Morgan," she said, taking my hand as we sat in the facility's garden, "I feel like I'm waking up from a strange dream. There are so many blank spots in my memory." "The doctors say that will improve as the medications clear your system," I assured her. "Barbara was giving me pills. She said they were for anxiety, but they made me so confused." Grandma's eyes sharpened with sudden clarity. She and Richard were always whispering. When I asked questions about my finances or the will, they would change the subject or give me another pill. It broke my heart to hear her recount the manipulation she'd experienced. "I'm sorry I couldn't stop it sooner, Grandma. You tried to tell me, didn't you?" She frowned, trying to piece together fragmented memories. "I remember you coming to the house and there was an argument." "Yes. They wouldn't let me speak to you alone." She squeezed my hand. "Well, I'm listening now. Tell me everything." I carefully explained what had happened: the family group chat, the scheme to change her will, Barbara's gambling debts, and my father's financial troubles. Grandma listened intently, occasionally asking pointed questions that demonstrated her mind was indeed recovering. "I want to see this attorney Christine," she declared when I finished. "And I want to fix my will, the real one, not whatever nonsense Barbara had me sign." Christine visited the next day, bringing Frank Sullivan with her. The reunion between Grandma and her longtime attorney was emotional. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry I couldn't prevent this," Frank said. "Nonsense, Frank. You tried to warn me and I should have listened. Now let's fix this mess." With Grandma's cognitive functions improving daily, Christine petitioned the court to have her competency re-evaluated sooner than scheduled. Judge Martinez agreed, and the medical evaluation confirmed what I already knew: Grandma Evelyn was fully capable of making her own decisions when not improperly medicated. The evening before the follow-up hearing, I returned to my apartment to find the door ajar. My heart raced, fearing another break-in. Instead, I found Barbara frantically searching through my desk drawers. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, immediately hitting record on my phone. Barbara whirled around, caught in the act. "Morgan the 1st, I was looking for you." By breaking into my apartment again, her composure cracked. "You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" "What I've done? You drugged Grandma and tried to steal her money." "I needed that money," she shouted. "The casinos were going to send collectors after me. Richard promised me enough to pay them off if I helped change the will." I kept her talking, gathering more incriminating statements while subtly texting Christine to call the police. "So you admit you conspired with my father to manipulate Grandma and change her will?" "It wasn't supposed to affect Evelyn," Richard said. "The medications would just make her more agreeable." How was I supposed to know they would fog her mind like that? And framing me for theft, breaking into my apartment, was that all Richard's idea too? Barbara's eyes narrowed. "That was my initiative. You were ruining our plan. Someone had to stop you." By the time police arrived, I had a full confession recorded on my phone. Barbara was arrested for breaking and entering, and the recording was added to the growing case against her. The next morning, our family gathered once more in Judge Martinez's courtroom. This time, Grandma Evelyn was alert and determined, sitting beside me with Frank Sullivan on her other side. Barbara was notably absent, still in police custody after her arrest. My parents, Jason and Rachel, sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, a physical manifestation of the family division. My father looked haggard, the weight of his exposed schemes visibly aging him. Judge Martinez reviewed the new competency evaluation. "Based on the medical reports and my own observation, I find Evelyn Reynolds to be fully competent to manage her own affairs. The temporary guardianship is hereby dissolved." She turned to my grandmother. "Miss Reynolds, do you wish to make a statement?" Grandma stood with dignity. "I do, Your Honor. First, I want to thank my granddaughter Morgan for fighting for me when others tried to take advantage. Second, I want the court to know that I am pursuing criminal charges against Barbara Reynolds and Richard Reynolds for their actions." She turned to face my father directly. "Richard, you are my son and I will always love you. But what you did was unforgivable. You were willing to drug your own mother for money. You'll have to earn back my trust, and that will take time." My father couldn't meet her gaze. "As for the rest of the family," Grandma continued, "I believe they were misled to varying degrees. I'm willing to work on rebuilding those relationships." She sat down, and Judge Martinez nodded respectfully. "The court acknowledges your statement, Miss Reynolds. Now, regarding the financial matters, the judge ordered a full accounting of Grandma's finances by an independent auditor, maintained the freeze on large transactions until the audit was complete, and formally revoked Barbara's power of attorney. Additionally, Judge Martinez concluded, I am referring this case to the district attorney with a recommendation for criminal charges of elder abuse, financial exploitation, and conspiracy against Barbara Reynolds and Richard Reynolds." As the hearing ended, my grandmother turned to me. "I'd like to go home now, my real home, not that prison Barbara turned it into." Outside the courthouse, my mother approached hesitantly. "Evelyn Morgan, please. Can we talk?" "Not today," Caroline Grandma said firmly. "I need time." "We all do." Jason and Rachel hung back, clearly torn between loyalties. I gave them a small nod, acknowledging their complicated position but not yet ready for reconciliation. Driving Grandma home, I felt the weight of the past weeks finally beginning to lift. There was still much to resolve: the criminal proceedings against Barbara and my father, the family relationships fractured perhaps beyond repair, and Grandma's recovery from her ordeal. But as we pulled up to her Victorian home and I helped her up the familiar steps, there was a sense of rightness, of justice served, and protection secured. "We need to call Diane," Grandma declared as we entered. "I want her back as my caregiver." "And we'll need to rehire the gardener," Barbara fired. "Those poor roses have been neglected terribly." I smiled, recognizing the return of the take-charge woman I'd always admired. "Already done. Diane starts tomorrow and the gardener next week." Grandma took my hand. "Thank you, Morgan. Not just for the practical matters, but for fighting for me when it would have been easier to walk away." "I would never abandon you, Grandma. I know that now. And I want you to know that regardless of what happens with the rest of the family, you and I are solid. No group chats required." We shared a laugh that felt like the first step toward healing. 6 months after the courthouse confrontation, Grandma Evelyn hosted a small gathering in her garden. The roses were blooming brilliantly again, tended by both the reinstated gardener and Grandma herself, who found therapeutic value in the careful work. The guest list reflected our new reality. Diane was there now, promoted to household manager with expanded responsibilities. Frank Sullivan attended with his wife, their decades-long friendship with Grandma renewed. Christine Patel came as both attorney and friend. Audrey joined us, having been such a crucial ally throughout the ordeal. More surprisingly, Jason and Rachel were present with their spouses. After months of careful conversation and gradual reconciliation, Grandma had welcomed them back into her life, though the relationship remained a work in progress. My father was notably absent, serving 6 months of community service as part of a plea deal for his role in the scheme. He had avoided jail time by cooperating fully with prosecutors and agreeing to make financial restitution. Our relationship remained strained, with limited contact through carefully worded emails. Barbara faced more serious consequences: 18 months in jail for elder abuse, financial fraud, breaking and entering, and attempted theft. She was also required to enter gambling addiction treatment upon release. My mother occupied an uncomfortable middle ground. While not criminally charged, her complicity had damaged her relationships with both Grandma and me. She was working with a therapist to understand her enabling behavior, and had moved temporarily to her sister's house in Michigan to gain perspective. "This garden was always my favorite place," Grandma said as we gathered around the patio table. "It reminds me that beautiful things require both care and vigilance. You have to nurture what matters and protect it from those who would harm it." The metaphor wasn't lost on any of us. "I've made changes to my estate planning," she announced, setting down her teacup. "Frank has helped me create arrangements that are both fair and protected from manipulation." With Frank's guidance, Grandma had established a proper trust, with multiple trustees and built-in protections against undue influence. The inheritance would be divided among her grandchildren, with additional provisions for my parents contingent upon continued therapy and financial counseling. "The money was never the point," Grandma continued. "It was the deception that hurt most deeply. Family should be honest with each other even when it's difficult." Rachel, who had been quieter than usual, spoke up. "I've been thinking about that a lot. If I'd just been honest about my financial troubles from the beginning instead of stealing from the charity, none of this might have happened." "We all made mistakes," Jason acknowledged. "I should have spoken up when Dad and Barbara first started talking about changing the will." The conversation turned to lessons learned, painful but valuable insights about trust, communication, and standing up for what's right even when it's difficult. For me, the journey had transformed how I viewed family. Blood ties weren't guarantees of loyalty or love. Those had to be earned and maintained through actions. At the same time, forgiveness wasn't an all-or-nothing proposition. It was possible to set boundaries while leaving room for healing. Grandma Evelyn, now 87 and fully recovered from her ordeal, had shown remarkable resilience. Rather than becoming bitter or fearful, she had channeled her experience into action, establishing a foundation to educate seniors about financial exploitation and elder abuse. "Morgan will help me run it," she announced proudly. "We're calling it the Family Trust Initiative," a bit of irony there but also truth. I had taken a leave from my marketing career to help launch the foundation, finding unexpected fulfillment in work that combined my business skills with a deeply personal mission. As evening approached, and our guests began to depart, Grandma asked me to stay behind. We sat together on her garden bench, watching the sunset paint the roses in golden light. When I was under Barbara's influence, foggy from those medications, I kept having this recurring dream, Grandma confided. I was trapped in a maze where all the walls looked like family photographs, but when I touched them, they dissolved into dust. At the center of the maze was a garden, this garden, but I couldn't find my way there. She took my hand. "You helped me find my way back, Morgan." "We found our way together," I corrected gently. "Yes, I suppose we did," she smiled. "You know, inheritance isn't just about money or property. It's about values, courage, resilience. Those are the things I hope I've passed on to you. You have, Grandma. More than you know." As the garden darkened and the first stars appeared, we sat in comfortable silence, 2 generations of strong women who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. The family we once knew had been irreparably changed, but from those broken pieces we were building something new, something more honest, more resilient, and ultimately more valuable than any inheritance could measure. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely, nor had the sense of loss. But sitting beside my grandmother in the garden she loved, I felt something I hadn't expected to find again so soon: peace. Not the naive peace of someone untested, but the hard-won serenity of someone who had fought for what matters and discovered her own strength in the process. Have you ever discovered someone wasn't who you thought they were? How did you handle that betrayal? Drop a comment below and share your experience. Your story might help someone else going through something similar. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with anyone who might be facing family challenges of their own. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is as important as the family we're born into. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found some wisdom in my journey.